Delighted to have you here today, and I'm excited about the material that you're going to learn today. What we'll cover is how to distinguish yourself from other guests, the elements of a compelling pitch letter, creating attention-generating lead paragraphs, molding the message to the right audience, what gets a host or producer to say yes, how to write great subject lines for high open rates, and what to do once you've written that wow pitch letter. How are you going to deliver it? What's going to be in your verbal conversation that's going to hook them? So the first thing that I want to talk today is about your key targets, because when you sit down to write your pitch, you really need to have in mind what media you're going to be pitching. And there are a whole series of media that you can take advantage of when you're talking about radio. And that includes the broadcast radio, that could be national and satellite radio services, satellite like XM, national shows that air everywhere. Syndicated, which are broadcast on different stations all across the country. Of course, local broadcast stations, those in your community or in communities where you want to have visibility. And then on the internet, you have several options, including the general networks, such as Voice America, which cover all kinds of different topics. And you can go onto those websites and you can see the different silos, different areas that they cover, and reach out to the radio shows in those particular subject matters. The vertical networks, these are networks that actually focus on a particular subject matter or genre, like the BBS radio network focuses on mind, body, spirit. Progressive and Healthy Life both focus on health. There are a variety of different ones that you can approach that will have whole sequences of radio shows that are appropriate for you. Then you want to look at private or localized networks. For example, many cities around the country have their own individual local networks, like LA Talk or Sedona Talk. And then, of course, there's Blog Talk, which is anybody can get a show on for a minimal amount of money. But they also have different sequences of kinds of shows where you can go research the ones that are appropriate for you. And today, of course, podcasts are all the rage. They are really targeted audiences of people who are following a specific caster and who is producing information in specific areas. And getting on a podcast that's aligned with your subject matter is very vitally important today, because you know you're going to get a very, very targeted audience. And then, of course, when you're writing your your radio pitch letter, much of what you do is also appropriate for television. And we'll talk a little bit more on how to make it appropriate for TV as we go along here. So some of the different options in TV are, if you're really shooting high, would be the national morning shows, like Good Morning America and the Today Show and Fox, etc. And then there are, of course, the local morning shows. And these are the most likely opportunities for someone to deliver a message today on television, because they're interested in homegrown talent, people in their areas that are doing interesting things. Also, as you go around to different markets, that's a great opportunity. They're oftentimes looking for something that they can key on that's happening in their town. So if you're going to appear on somebody else's local morning show in another market that's not yours, you really have to have an event. Yes, you can have a book, but preferably if there's a bookstore appearance, something like that, that gives them a local news hook. Then there are general talk shows, things like, that have a variety of different subject matters that they talk about, either locally or nationally. And they're public affairs or culture or whatever else might be happening. The View, for example. Issues-oriented shows. Many markets have issue-oriented shows, public affairs that are specifically about what's going on in their markets and their cities. serving the disadvantaged, crime, the renovation, whatever is going on in their particular market that's newsworthy. And then other opportunities besides the TV shows themselves are news broadcasts. And you can look at national news if you have a story that is of that stature, but you can also look at the local newscasts. And there you're going to be reaching out specifically to the planning editors or the news assignment editors at those stations that then help make decisions as to what's going to get covered. Many of them have either a segment at 11 in the morning or noon or 4 o'clock where they take guests. Now, of course, there's occasional news magazines. Some of those used to be things like, Eye on LA, and they focus on a particular marketplace. There's fewer of those around, and many of them are pay to play, but there's still a few. You can find them. And then, of course, if you've got a story that ties in with celebrities, then the entertainment TVs are a great opportunity to really get booked. And now, increasingly, there are internet television shows, either on YouTube or on other channels that are video casts. They're on people's websites. So lots and lots of what used to be just radio interviews actually have a visual component these days and are a great opportunity for when you're actually starting to build your media list of who you actually want to present this pitch letter to. So that's a little overview of the media that you would be actually looking to target your pitch letter to. So you want to create media lists initially with achievable low-hanging fruit. And the reason for this is because, one, you want to start building an archive of shows, video links that you can send the higher up shows, because they want to know how well you performed on smaller shows in individual markets, before you attack the big ones that are very picky about what it is that they will have on the air. Another reason is, go for the ones that you know that are likely to be able to book you, because that builds your encouragement, your confidence. Because if you just start out looking for the big ones, they may very well reject you, and you'll feel that your efforts aren't bearing fruit. So better to start with the ones that are within your grasp, that are local, that are in your subject matter. Get those first, and then start building up to the bigger national kinds of media. So now we get into actually some of the strategies that you have to look at before you start building this pitch letter. You really want to establish, and we've talked a little bit about this in previous modules, what is your brand? And what is it that brand overall brings forward? And how are you going to use or work that into your pitch letter? Somehow it needs to convey who you are in a succinct way. And your USP, your unique selling proposition, may in fact be your brand. But it's really, how is it that you are unique, and why is it you are different? What is it that you're bringing to the table that nobody else does? And so, like you use that in your speaker one sheet, you're going to also use that here in your radio TV pitch letter. And then if you have a book or a product or a program or an event, if this pitch letter is designed to promote any of those things, not all of them, because that's way too much to feature in one pitch letter. But if you're going for promoting an event, or if you're going for promoting your book or a product or a program, you need to choose which one of those you're going to highlight in the pitch letter and how you're going to present it. And then we're going to look at your hooks. What is it that's going to get the attention of the media? What's the news as we go along in this? And lastly, of course, as we've talked elsewhere, what's going to be so critical here is the benefit to the audience. What is the outcome they're going to experience? What are they going to learn that's going to change their lives, make their lives easier, move them forward somehow? These are all things that you need to sort of focus on before you actually begin writing your pitch letter. So what we're going for here is how you can stand out and offer value. These two things are the essence of what your pitch letter must do. How are you different, and what value are you offering to their listeners or their viewers? Now, we're going to look next at finding the hook. What is it that makes the story timely and newsworthy? And when you're dealing with media, this is really a differentiating factor. Now, you can just send them a pitch that focuses on you, but if you can address any of these or wrap it around any of these, you increase your success rate at getting booked. So here are some of the ways that you can make your pitch timely and newsworthy. 1, do you have a breakthrough solution that is resolving a problem that society, their listeners, their viewers are struggling with today? You can tie it into a news event, and certainly there are terrible tragedies happening in the world today. There are political issues. There are people needing hope. There are all kinds of factors that come out of the news that you can try to address. And we'll see how we do that a little bit later as we're talking specifically the leads. Trends. What trends are going on in the world, in our culture, that your pitch can hook onto? Something that is everybody's talking about, water cooler talk, something that is emerging, something that has to do maybe with how we deal with the world in our new digital lifestyle. Look for the trends, maybe at fashion, whatever it might be, and see if you have a hook that ties to the trends. Another thing is holidays. Obviously, if you've got something that's perfect for Halloween or Christmas or Easter or 4th of July, if you can make your topic topical for that, that would be great. But there's also a whole series of other events that are very obscure, but there really are, the National Day of so-and-so or the National Month of such and such, whether it's an ailment, whether it's celebrating secretaries and office administrators, or whether it's celebrating green plants, whatever it might be. If you go on to Chase's calendar of events, you might actually be able to tie into a number of those current existing events, calendars. Now, or I would call them pseudo holidays or honorations, but you can always invent your own. If there's not one that always exists, you can create your own. So why not? If there's no contrary evidence, it doesn't mean that you can't just own a day. Lists. Lists are a great hook. Here are the top 10 something or other, or the 5 ways to do such and such. If you're writing articles, we call these listicles, but they can be a great hook for a pitch. Some wisdom that you offer that this audience needs to hear. Statistics. If you have startling statistics that really will somehow wake up this host or this producer, that are indicative of something going on that is important to the audience, that this audience is potentially a statistic in, or that is going to make them aware that there's a problem they don't even know about. So definitely you want to look at statistics that might be of value to you. And of course, celebrities. This is always a great hook. If there's celebrities are doing something today that's of interest, one thing comes to mind that when Gwyneth Paltrow was breaking up, she talked about consciously uncoupling. Well, certainly if you want to talk about new ways of divorce and separating, that was a great hook at that time to jump onto. But there are all other kinds of ways to tie yourself to celebrities, things that they're doing, things how you are like them, things how you're different, how they, when they had their misadventures, if you had been able to counsel and coach them, they wouldn't have had their misadventures. There's lots of different ways to evoke a celebrity, even if you don't know them. But of course, if you do know them and you can use them as somehow to connect, well, you have trained this person, and this person, or you've helped them through this, and they have allowed you to use their name, well, that's certainly another great hook. Involvement in the community. If you have something that engages the community, that's going to get them going forward, some gardening program that you're doing with the community, or a cleanup program with the community, or mental health program you're doing with the community. Anytime it involves a community, that makes a good, timely hook. Predictions. Well, if you're an intuitive and you have predictions to offer, that's really a great opportunity to bring them forward. But it isn't just those kinds of predictions. You may be able to introduce your predictions on what the economy is going to happen, or new trends that are going to come forth. And if you're bringing that forward for something that isn't normally a part of the conversation, that's interesting and unique, then that's something you can key on. Pop culture. Certainly there are always things going on in our culture having to do with music and entertainment and trends, and for example, the way that the millennials choose to work and choose their jobs. There's all kinds of things that are happening, certainly the superhero trends, that you can actually tie into to get some attention. Human interest, overcoming adversity. This is really a critical, if you have a great story that is really compelling about how you've overcome adversity or something you've been through, and you're now telling people how they can overcome this. If you can tell your story and make it interesting in your pitch letter in a succinct way, you can really grab that producer. Anniversaries. The 75th anniversary of crayons, the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War, whatever it might be. If you have an anniversary that's coming up that you can tie the story to, that's also another good way to get a news hook. Social network newsworthiness. Well, everybody knows these days how the media is fascinated by what happens on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. So if you have a story that ties in with that, then of course this also makes potentially good TV segments and radio segments for the media. Fly in the face of conventional wisdom. If you are doing something that everybody says doesn't make sense, but you're doing it successfully, well, that's a great way to show that you have a path that actually works, and you want to show other people to do that. So that's one. And then lastly, controversy. Controversy sells. Doesn't mean that you want to engage in the rhetoric that's going on today, but if you can and you could, and you can use that to your advantage to get attention, to get you on the air, why not? But you can also start with a controversial subject and then move it onto what it is that you really want to talk about. So these are all ways to make your hook, find that hook that's going to get the producers are interested in you. Give them what they are already looking for. That's the key to the hook. That's the key to getting booked. Sometimes you can surprise them. They don't even know what they're looking for. But if they are already looking for it, man, you're really in a good shape then. Writing your pitch letter. Now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of actually creating your pitch letter. Some of the key factors in its success are: you want to get the attention of the host or producer immediately. You have less than 30 seconds to grab his or her attention. Keep that in mind, because they are so busy, they're going to skim through their emails as quickly as possible. So it has to really get them focused and excited in just 30 seconds. And that includes your follow-up phone call too. So be concise. That first graph must shock, excite, intrigue, or create a great reason to read on. Keep your opening paragraphs to no more than about 3 or 4 lines. You don't want a 7-line opening paragraph. That's going to turn them off instantaneously. So keep it short enough for them to read and grasp the subject, or at least to pull them in so they want to read the rest. Attention generating approaches. Here is the focus to the lead. You want to pose a question. Why do people pick the pets they choose at animal shelters and rescue services? Create a question that's going to get the host, the reader, the producer to say, oh, yeah, that's an interesting thought. You're pulling them in with a question. The next is make a bold statement. You're just as likely to be a victim of a natural disaster today as you are whatever it may be. That's making a bold statement. You're giving them an alert. You're saying that there is something they need to pay attention to. Here's what we're talking about. Invoke celebrity names. What do Scarlett Johansson, Ryan Gosling, and whatever your name have in common? And of course, you've identified what that might be and how it's going to play into your pitch. State a problem that you are the person to solve. 10 million people suffer from neck problems due to texting. Clearly, you have a methodology to alleviate some of those neck problems. Make a revelatory declaration. Studies show 6 of 10 people don't believe they deserve their success. So you've revealed some statistic or some information that will lead them to want to know more. Tell a story. This is where we talk about your hardship or your overcoming adversity. And here's where you just start out by starting to tell the story. When John Smith came back from Iraq, and then you go from whatever that may be. Be topical and key the interview to something newsworthy or an upcoming holiday, like we talked about. Childhood abuse or neglect plays a role in the lives of 9 out of 10 homegrown U.S. school shooters. Ties into the news, sadly, as that may be. Or Halloween trick-or-treaters are finding more healthy new options in their bags of goodies. That's a little more upbeat, but you can see where it ties to the holiday. Create an unexpected juxtaposition. It's snowing in Phoenix today. Something that they wouldn't ordinarily put together. Shock the reader. 3 Supreme Court justices say you are wrong. How's that going to, who would want to have 3 Supreme Court justices? Target them. State something only you can say. My process has cured 35 people from cancer using only food choices. No surgery, chemicals, or radiation. Tweak or tease the host. Reference something previously on the show. Now, this would be dependent on you having actually listened to the show, heard or saw something that you can actually reference in the letter. Use puns or be clever. Have you ever been Insta-slammed? Of course, that's a play on Instagram. So, use the kinds of attention-getting puns or cleverness that's going to make them wake up and pay attention to you. The body copy. Essentials for creating a compelling pitch. Now you've got their attention with your lead paragraph. Make yourself irresistible to a host. You want to establish that there is a problem that engages the audience and for which you have the solution. Briefly cite your credentials. Why you? What is it that you bring to the table? Use great adjectives that back your credentials. Award-winning, best-selling, acclaimed. And in your worksheet, I've actually given you places where you can go to get some great words that can describe your credentials, describe you. We talked a little bit on the Speaker One sheet. You're going to use some of those same words here. You want to advise the host how your interview will benefit the listeners, including bullet points. And I want to talk about those bullet points, but I want to look at this. This is essentially the formula to creating a compelling pitch. So I'm going to go over this again quickly. You've got the attention with your lead paragraph. You've got some content or topic that's going to make yourself irresistible to a host. You want to establish that there's a problem that engages the audience for which you have the solution. You want to briefly cite your credentials. Now we're talking about briefly, like the name of your book, which establishes you as an expert, and the program or how many people you've served, etc., the why you, and the great adjectives that describe your credentials that make them sound exciting. And then we're going to show with bullet points what it is that the audience is going to learn. Now, your bullet points will include a variety of things. I do this many times in the pitch letters that I've written. I want to show the host or the producer that there are specific pieces of information and outcome that the audience is going to walk away with. And it really defines for the host as they're thinking, is this going to be a good segment? What is it that you're going to offer that will be of interest? And so I like to spell them out with anywhere from 4 to 6 bullet points. And you can start out by saying your listeners or viewers will learn. If you're writing for radio, it's listeners. And if it's TV, it's viewers. 5 ways to do something. The key to whatever it might be. What every leader must know. I love that word, must. 1 critical factor in. And that's where you take 1 and you really emphasize the 1 that they have to know. How to do the following. And sometimes you can just do a series of how-tos. So your bullet points are all how to do this, how to do this, how to do this, and how to do this. But how-to is a really obvious one. And then why this subject will do this, why will whatever. Alternately, you can introduce your bullet points with he will show you or she will show you, or your listeners, viewers will discover rather than just learn. She will explore, he will explore the following. So as you put these bullet points in, they're really going to make this real. It's not just here's the general topic, but here are some specific takeaways that the audience is going to get. So when you're going to write your pitch letter, you have to realize that there are different markets that you're going to be writing for, different specific audiences. So depending on what the genre is, or the topic, or the demographics, women, men, seniors, millennials, the different shows, they're all looking for guests that fit a specific profile. So you may want to make some adjustments to your pitch letter, specifically noting the audience so that they know that you are actually speaking to them. Now, one of the things you'll find is that it's unlikely that one pitch letter will work for all. So you may want to tweak that message for each of these media segments. And of course, if you know the host and the show that you're soliciting, you can actually tailor the pitch to that host, that subject, or that audience. Kind of like we were talking about, if you actually listen to it and you reference it in the lead, that might get their attention. But somewhere in there, if you know the host and you know they like a certain approach, or they use a catchphrase, you may want to use it to make them aware that that's where you're going with it. Segmenting your markets. You want to mold the message to specific audiences, as we were just saying. But there's also, when you go to do a pitch, and I've sometimes messed this up myself, where I have forgotten to change the words from listeners to viewers when I'm going from radio to TV. So make sure that you do that. Or if it's print, it goes to readers. So make sure that if you're referencing those specific words in your pitch, you change them for what it is. But another factor is when you are doing television, you want to make the pitch clearly more visual, where you can actually tell what the audience will see as well as what they're hearing from you. For example, I'm going to be doing a demonstration of, or I will bring a copy of this manifesto, or whatever it might be, or this product. Or I'm going to be bringing pets on the air. They want to know what's the visual angle. Yes, you can get booked without a visual angle, but if you have one, it definitely enhances the segment. Or if you have an event, you're going to bring some of the people from the event with you. Beware of genders. If the pitch is to a women's radio show and the topic is female driven, make sure that your genders reflect that. On the other hand, if your topic is for both genders, make sure that your wording is inclusive. Now, I'm going to recap many of these elements for you, and then we're going to talk about sample letters. I'm going to show you how we've woven a lot of these things together. So in structuring a compelling pitch letter that makes them say yes, you must have certain key information. And these elements should be included in this order: an attention-grabbing lead, a subject introduction or reason for the interview. Why are you asking for this interview? Your credentials. Keep these brief and pertinent, as we talked about. You don't need more than a half a paragraph discussing who you are. Benefits to the audience, specifically state or spell out what be learned by the listener. Brief review quote from an endorser or reviewer, an objective party. If you have a great quote from somebody that is well known, and they've praised you, they've given great credit, that also helps in a pitch letter. If you've got something along those lines that really makes it, give it a little of oomph. And in some cases, you may want to state where you have been booked before. Now, this is something where you don't want to put in a competitive show, but especially with television, national television or big TV, they want to see other TV appearances at the end of the letter where you've been booked on other TV shows that maybe were local or whatever. They'd love to see a link so that they know that you, in fact, have a good presentation. You present well in front of the camera. So that's something that you can also take advantage of. Now, here's something else that you do. As part of the pitch, you can offer a copy of the book or the product and ask the host to see if she would like one sent. So you can simply say, this is my book. If you would like to review the book prior to the interview, please let me know and I will get it to you. Now, of course, if you want to send this by mail with a pitch, you can do that. But a lot of times email is the first one, the way they want to see it, and then they'll look at the book. You want to obviously provide contact for them to call for the interview. I've actually seen people write their pitches and get all the way to the end and forget to include their own contact information. Restate in one line why you'd be a great guest and the benefits, if you can, to kind of close it out. And then provide a signature and the testimony. I like to put my testimonials. If I've got one great testimonial, I might put it in the pitch. But by and large, if you've got 2 or 3 great testimonials from people who are well known, I like to box them and put them at the end of the pitch after the signature, so that it doesn't really take up so much space in the pitch itself. But as they read on, they can see that you've really got some great endorsements. And then when you're doing your pitch letter, the best font to use is Arial Point 11. It's a simple, non-serif type, easy to read, and it's a great way to make sure that your letter looks great. Now, when you're putting together your pitch letter, you want no more than 1.5 pages of copy, and the shorter is the better. So if you actually can manage to get this in 1 page, it's great. But I don't necessarily subscribe to the point that every pitch letter has to be a page. If you can keep it short, fantastic, and get your point across. But if you go to a little longer, that's okay too, especially if your headlines and your subject lines are powerful. And you'll see many of the pitch letters that we do for our clients are a little longer. So now I'm going to get into the sample pitch letters. Here's one that we did for an author who has a compelling book regarding the connection between autism and uh, and uh, uh, and injections, childhood injections. And you will see the format that we use is that we like to put a graphic on the top that comes from the book, the title of the book. Then we incorporate a copy of the book cover in the pitch, and then we put the picture of the host toward the end, where we really talk a little bit more about his expertise. And so the headline in this case focuses on the book itself, but it doesn't necessarily have to. You can actually start with the subject matter. And in this case, we say a compelling chronicle, which poses the question whether the autism epidemic could have been stopped if courageous scientists had truly followed the evidence. And here's where we sort of where I'm sort of telling the story. It reads like a mystery thriller. A lone whistleblower, akin to all the president's men's deep throat, spills the government's secrets. But like the film Contagion, what's at risk is the health of millions. But fiction it is not. This remarkable chronicle wades directly into the maelstrom that is the vaccine autism controversy. Kent Heckenlively's Inoculated: How Science Lost Its Soul in Autism may initially read like a spy novel, but unfolds to a complete accounting of all the actions and documents that comprise a government cover-up, putting a vast number of the nation's children at great risk to trigger autism once inoculated with the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine. So the first part of this, we have a compelling headline. Then we have a strong lead, a storytelling lead. Then I talk about who he is. Heckenlively, a science teacher and attorney, uses both of these exacting skills to demonstrate how the Centers for Disease Control deliberate choice to inaccurately report tests that showed a distinct correlation between a vaccine and increased autism statistics, and a lack of courage by those who could have spoken up in the 2000s when inoculations began to surface, but instead stayed silent or deliberately perverted the truth, have resulted in an entire generation of autism-disabled children and a fast-rising tide of more. There's the warning. And so I go to spell out more about the book. There are the bullet points at the top. And then I also address the fact that he has an autistic child. And that's why he is so, passionate about this subject. I end with the call for call to action, and then the contact information. Here's one. We were tying into Valentine's Day and the fact that this woman had just appeared on ABC's The Bachelor. Certainly millions of people saw her. So we're saying ABC's The Bachelor calls Tzipora Kingsbury America's love guru, invites her to awaken intimacy between the Bachelor and his date, airing on February 2nd. Now, we also like to put guest for your show above the headline so that it makes them realize that this is just not some other solicitation. It's actually a guest for their show. And you'll see where we do this with the subject lines as well. So we talk about her bringing sensuality, sexuality, and spirituality. She offers your viewers 5 tips toward revolutionizing intimacy in their own lives. There's your 5 tips. And then we key on the holiday between now and Valentine's Day, February 14. Everyone is talking about love, but why not have as a guest on your show the very woman the ABC's Bachelor called America's love guru? The show sought out this international expert who bridges sensuality, sexuality, and spirituality for a short intimacy intensive. And then again, we go and we talk about who she is. She has a challenging name to pronounce, so we actually spelled it phonetically in this. And then we talked about, again, the bullet points. Learning how to employ your breath-specific ways allows you to, and then she talks about what this is going to do. She talks about the breath work she does. So that gives you an idea how we use this to promote somebody who appeared on television. Here is one that many people will relate to. This is a before and an after. And again, we have the guest for your show, and we're applying directly to what people are already experiencing. This is designed to show up right at that time after the first of the year. Given up on your weight loss New Year's resolutions already? Want to know why you didn't succeed? Well, again, That's a time factor that, you know, the holiday related, so to speak, cultural trend. And then we talk about Asher Fox's comprehensive guide to subverting the subconscious provides a proven and welcome method to stop the yo-yo cycle. And then we also, in this particular case, we promote the fact that his book was a #1 Amazon bestseller. And so, and the pictures, of course, are really compelling. You can see how he's gone from a very overweight man to very, very trim. Have you given up on your weight loss New Year's resolution already? By now, most people are admitting defeat. That's because will isn't enough. You have to defeat your self-sabotaging subconscious. Asher Fox did it for himself, and now he can do it for you and your listeners. Here is his story. And we go through, you know, a little bit about his story. Asher Fox thought that becoming a personal fitness trainer would give him the tools, motivation, and activity to conquer his yo-yo weight gain. And at 22, starting only to $300 left over from student loans, he built one of the largest personal training businesses in the state of Florida, with multiple locations and a host of trainers working for him. But it's hard to maintain your credibility with clients when you reach 300 pounds, just as Asher did at his peak. Now, that's a really dramatic story. Here was a man teaching people how to get fit, lose weight, and he's over 300 pounds. And so we show how he did it, and we talk about some of the bullet points that the listeners or the viewers are going to get that's going to actually make their weight loss stick in the future. So here's another one that this got a huge response. And this again is more of a story. And we talk about the book at the top, and then Lynn Cochran Murphy shows how to surmount the tough times and pain in life to find the awaiting joy in this Amazon bestseller. She's the ultimate survivor and thriver, healing others along the way. As an infant, Lynn Cochran Murphy survived the tragic house fire that claimed her father and 2 sisters with severe burns over much of her body. She lived most of her life with severely depressed and alcoholic mother, and saw her mom contemplate suicide with a razor blade in hand. She endured sexual abuse by a trusted male relative, along with a gang rape in a darkened station wagon. She lived through her stepfather being crushed to death in a logging accident and her mother being murdered in a bar room robbery. If after all she has been through, Lynn Cochran Murphy is radiantly happy and living a life of pure service to the world, don't you think she can teach you a thing or two? You can see why that one drove I think we ended up with 75 interviews with that pitch. And so we've given her, it's her story that makes it so dramatic, but it's her transformation that really pulls the reader in. This one is about love. And again, we're talking about it for Valentine's. And the book was called Get Love, How to Transform Your Love Life. When love is eluding you or is going askew, do you want a loving relationship? A true love story with lessons unfolds to provide you and what you need to experience the ultimate love relationship. Remember that feeling, the one you have fallen, when you have fallen deeply into love, when you are both high on each other, and then that relationship which began as such elation begins to erode and the love becomes pain. You are left feeling the loss and the anguish. And it isn't the first time this has occurred, is it? Are you star-crossed, or is it something else going on here? This is an experience many people can identify with. That's why it's so powerful. People who have fallen in love, fallen out of love, and are at the point of saying, what happened? And this book chronicles her relationship, but it also really zeroes in on what it is people need to do to prevent that love from disappearing. Here's one, many people are aware of indigo children, if you're in the spiritual movement, children that are born with real extra gifts that see the world a little bit different. But this woman realized that there were actually indigo adults, and she was one of them. And so she wrote a book specifically for her peers. The Indigo Journals, Spiritual Healing for the Indigo Adults and Other Feminine Souls. integrating your unique gifts into a world that has always seemed a touch alien and harsh to you. How to unlock your hidden feminine power to bring balance to an overly masculine world. You may have heard of indigo children, those with exceptional gifts and insight that don't really seem to fit or adapt to a linear world. But did you know that there are indigo adults? And you may just be one of them. See how we've drawn the reader in, saying, hi, I didn't know this, and wow, could I? Yoel Swan, the gifted author of the Indigo Journals, Spiritual Healing for Indigo Adults and Other Feminine Souls, says that indigo adults are feminine souls with certain masculine qualities. And here are their main traits. And I go down them. And if you're one of these people and you're looking at that, you're going, wow, that's me. If you recognize these traits in yourself, then you're among a wave of feminine souls who have often felt out of place or disconnected in the world around you. You just feel different. And often the end result is living with discomfort, anguish, and suffering, feeling bombarded by sensations or taking on the pain of the world around you. But there is a way to come into alignment with who you truly are now and were always meant to be. And Yoel Swan shows the way. So we basically established that there's a problem, that you're not relating to the world in a simple way that other people would. And now we've established that she has the answer. Teachings from God, greeting your soul and revealing the divine within. Now, this is a challenging book to promote because it's a channeled book. And for those of you who don't know what channeling it means, that she's receiving information from beings beyond this dimension. So, getting somebody to pay attention to a channeled book is not always easy, but we look for unique ways to do that. And in this particular case, we thought it would be great, again, to basically take advantage of the celebrity hook in a way that would bring her to the attention of the media. Where most teenagers are worrying about wearing the right lip color or following the right YouTube star, Courtney Amundsen is only worried about whether the messages she is astonishingly being delivered from the divine are reaching enough people. Because Courtney was a mere 16 when she began following in the footsteps of Esther Hicks, Jane Roberts, Edgar Cayce, and J.Z. Knight as an extraordinarily powerful channeler. So we've already now put her as a 16-year-old on their level. And then she goes on to talk about how now at a ripened 19 years, she's got a new book where she's bringing some of that information forward. So again, here's the celebrity angle. The celebrities are within the context of the people that would be interested in this story. So now I want to talk about subject lines. And these are the real attention getters that are going to get them to open the pitch in the first place. So what are the elements for an effective subject line? You want to write guest for your show right up front so that they see that and they know that this is going to be an offer and that it's not some other solicitation they're getting. Now, if you're sending it individually rather than sending it through a service like Constant Contact, you really want to put the first name of the recipient in the beginning of the subject line. So it'd be, hi, John, or Nancy, and then the guest for your show. Because that, again, also makes them realize that it's personalized. It's not some spam letter that's being sent out to them. And the subject line must convey or imply some benefit to the listener or the viewer. Just in a very short sentence, how it can bring it home for the viewer. Now, the subject lines I'm going to show you are a little longer than most people are traditionally used. They happen to work for us and our audience. Doesn't mean that you cannot shorten them up, but they're going to give you some ideas of how we actually can get the kinds of great open rates that we do. So here are some of these samples. Guest for your show. You're not crazy, you're awakening. Dr. Edwidge's Guide to Getting Comfortable with the Uncomfortable. Everybody wants to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, don't they? Guest for your show. Amazon #1 bestseller, Alex Brady gives you the tools to get unstuck, take back control of your life, and to go from chaos to clarity. And by the way, In a subject line, it is perfectly okay to use an ampersand to shorten it up. Guest for your show. Dr. Tony Luisa Rivera shares how to listen to the body's whispers for deep and profound healing. So you see here, there is a implied benefit in each one of these subject lines. Guest for your show. Holly Kelly on planning for the new year and beyond the end of your life. Guest for your show. Lynn Cochran Murphy will share with your listeners how they can escape powerlessness and leave suffering behind. Guest for your show. Top book whisperer, how we define him very quickly. Tom Bird demonstrates how writing a book is a true and rapid path to spiritual self-discovery. Tips on how to begin the process. Guest for your show. Astonishing journey from smoking crack to Rod Stewart and Bette Midler vocalist to inspiring world-class author speaker on soul recovery. This was a great pitch because by evoking those two names and showing her transformation from drugs to being a teacher of how to get off drugs was a very powerful pitch, but we were able to succinctly tell it in the subject line. Guest for your show. Author, author, neuropsychologist, cool doc. We've just told what he is in just 4 words. Dr. Mario Martinez on what tips 100-year-olds can give your listeners on staying young and healthy. And that really got a lot of attention. And we also made it clear that we were speaking directly to their listeners through the host. Couple more. Guest for your show. Temple Hayes on When Did You Die? 8 steps to stop dying every day and start waking up. The RX for the emotionally and spiritually drained generation. How many people are going to look at that and say, oh my God, that's me. I'm overworked. I'm exhausted. I've lost my connection. And this one ties into a very famous film that was lauded in its time, but the author actually lived it. Guest for your show, author Tom North. The shocking truth about yours, mine, and ours. An inspirational story of survival and hope. And what the story here was that while the world looked on and thought that this was a fantastic story of 2 melding families with almost 20 children, looked like it was perfect from the outside, this was actually a story of child abuse. So your pitch has to tell a story, show a benefit in the subject line. That's what's going to get their attention. That's what's going to get them to open and read your pitch. Now, once you've begun to prepare to actually start getting these interviews, you're going to need a couple of tools ready to go so that you are prepped and can instantly respond and say yes and get those interviews lined up. And what you're going to need are a website, which we've talked about, a compelling website that promotes whatever it is that you're trying to tell, because the host is very likely going to go straight to your website once they get your pitch. Your media kit, which we will address in Module 4. If you need an individual press release, like an event that's coming up, etc., it may not be necessary in this particular circumstances, but it may be something you need for that specific incident or event. The pitch letters that we've just been putting together. Photos, because a lot of these hosts are going to say, okay, I need a bio on you and I need a photo on you. And you want a very good headshot that is current, but when it comes to radio, most likely you can do with just 72 DPI, which is a low-res image. But if you're talking about TV, they're going to want a 300 DPI high-res image. So you should have both at hand. And then if you are in fact trying to interest TV in you, you might want to have video links to other videos that you've done where you did a great TV segment and you can show how well you perform on television. And then if you're going to be on radio or a podcast, and you might want to offer a free opt-in. That's something you can also do on television, but it's common on radio and podcasts, where you are giving the listeners something where they can actually get logged in and opted in onto your website, a free gift that appeals to them. So you want to have that all ready to go when you start doing your pitching. Be ready in advance. Don't wait to be asked. So what's next? What do you do now that you've got the pitch and you're getting ready? You want to research and build your media list. As we talked about in the beginning, those are some of the various different media elements. Now, there are lots of ways to do that, and I have to say thank God for Google, because today that's one of the most simple and effective ways to actually find your media. But when you do, there are times when you might actually have to put in a phone call to find out who is the producer of that show, or to determine, if there is a list of producers, if one covers a specific topic. So you're going to have to do, in some cases, some of it's going to be on the internet and sometimes it's not. And today, especially with podcasts, a lot of times, if you're actually pitching yourself, you actually have to submit online rather than through an email. So you're going to want to know what those links are as well. Or you can simply send them an email. And this is something I do regularly. I say, look, I'd like to pitch your show. Who would I pitch by email? And they'll give me the information back. So that's another way to do it. We talked about having a media kit ready. You're going to want to have it in a PDF format, because that's the easiest way to send it, that it doesn't get hung up in spam. So make sure that you convert it to PDF. And if you are, in fact, doing radio and print and TV to promote a book, you want to have your books available to send to media for their review. When we do a radio media tour with our clients, a done-for-you radio media tour, we ask them to have 30 to 50 copies available before we even start the campaign. Now, yes, some people are going to be willing to look at a PDF, but the majority of the media are going to want a hard copy book. So just keep that in mind before you actually go to start your pitching. Now, make sure there are no hitches in your book availability. So if they're putting out a link that people can go and get your book, that there's no problems there. The same on your website and your funnel functions, your opt-in. Make sure everything's working right, because I've seen many a time when somebody will give out a link and it's not working, and the whole promotion was basically cratered because of it. Now, you're going to want to deliver this pitch verbally. And the best way to begin doing that is to create an abbreviated version of your pitch. I'll take the full long pitch and I'll just then start pulling out the essential stuff that is really the most eye-catching, verbal interest, write it up into a short, pithy paragraph, so that I can get all the information in a very short 30 to 30 seconds or so. And then I obviously want to include my contact information, where they're going to call me. And when you put this all together, you really want to rehearse your pitch. Now, you don't want to sound like it's being read. You want to be able to deliver it as if it's the first time. But you want to have it, this eliminates that fear factor that you go into and you think, what am I going to say? Am I going to get it right? Am I going to leave something out? If you actually have it written out ahead of time and you've rehearsed it a number of times, it's going to be a whole lot easier to deliver it. It's just really simple to, after you've done it a few times, just rattle it off. I actually keep mine right in front of me. And it never sounds like I'm reading, but I can just go right through it, and it sounds like it's exciting and enthusiastic, and my voice is speaking like, I love this content, this content and this information, and you should too. So then you want to go and test it on people see how they respond. And they may give you some comments. They may say, that's really not that great, or you might want to add this, you might want to take this out. Now, not everybody's going to know the best way to do this, but it's worth it seeing if you can engage the people around you before you actually start offering it to the folks in the media. And so now I've got a simple and easy way for you to use that great pitch letter that you've created. And I'm going to give you the leads every month that are going to get you booked, both on radio shows and podcasts. SpeakerTunity Radio Insider gives you more than 25 leads every month, shows that we've already vetted that love transformational content, people who have a message of empowerment, changing themselves, changing the world, changing the folks who are looking for a solution to their problem. We give you all the different formats: broadcast, internet, podcast, and satellites. We give you podcasts that are business ways. We give you podcasts that want all kinds of success content. We give you health and wellness. We give you all the different spectrum of self-improvement, personal growth, building a heart-based business, people that are willing, ready, and able to present you to their audience. And as you know, it's only $35 a month. So we would love to have you as part of the SpeakerTunity family so that we can feed these to you every month and make it easy on you, and that you've got a great pitch letter that we now know is going to get you those results. So now go land those shows. Go get yourself fully booked with your new pitch letter.